All right, you said that the Braves have been having the worst season they've had in a while, which is obvious to everyone that's a Braves fan. And you said that stats are a little bit weird and that uh you're gonna dive deeper into each one. So we're just gonna go through the Braves roster real quick. But the catch is you only get 1 minute to give your take on the player, about their stats, about why maybe they're playing bad, about everything like that. Are you ready?
Yep. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're gonna start with our pitcher, starting pitcher, Chris Sale. What do you think
All
about him?
right. Chris Sale recently had an injury, going to be out for a couple of weeks. Other than that, he's had a pretty solid season. Had a rocky start, but he's had a very solid season overall. Allowed batting average 234, allowed on base 302, he walked 26 batters and 114 strikeouts. Has a 350 slugging percentage, throwing 1,486 pitches, and he's actually in the top 6% in all of baseball for lowest hard hit velocity. So players are not getting great contact off of him, and we're getting a lot of like quick ground balls off of that. His expected batting average allowed is 216. That's really, really good. He's top 8% in allowed exit velocity at 86.5. So, like I said, they're not getting any good contact. He's at 51.9% at landing in the strike zone and 63.9% at getting them to swing inside the zone.
All right, Ev. So to test your knowledge a little bit more, I'm gonna ask these out of order so that we can see what players are really selling or which players are really like helping us. So next we have is Aaron Bummer.
Aaron Bummer. All right, Aaron Bummer, a left-handed reliever, recently got moved into the starting rotation. Something that really stood out to me: a 4.6 barrel rate. So a barrel rate is basically the way a player hits the ball at 98 miles an hour on exit velocity and has a certain launch angle. So he's really good at keeping the hit balls from not being very fast and not being very high. He's a really good ground ball pitcher, best in the team in ground balls. And allowed batting average 245, allowed on base percentage 329, allowed slugging 395. His allowed WOBA is 310 and WOBA count is 372. Expected batting average is 255 and expected slugging is 377. So Bummer, he's due to the starting rotation, we're kind of having some bullpen games here and there with having to use Bummer in that five spot because of some injuries. But overall, I think he's done okay in throwing lineup and should get more used to it.
So the next one is actually my favorite, Dylan Lee.
Dylan Lee, one of my personal favorites too. Allowed batting average 195, allowed on base percentage 244, and allowed slugging 356. His allowed WOBA is 259, his allowed WOBA count of 333. He is in the top 10% of all baseball in hard hit percentage. We talked about Chris Sale, the hard hit percentage. Dylan Lee is just 1% higher than Chris Sale, and his exit velocity is 0.4% higher. He's top 9% in all of baseball, only an 86.9 allowed exit velocity off the bat. He's top 8% in expected batting average allowed at just 206, and top 8% in expected WOBA. And Dylan Lee, very reliable man out of the bullpen. I actually nicknamed him Mr. Reliable because he's very trustworthy out the bullpen. His pitches land 51.3% in the zone, and he gets 69.3% zone swinging, 79% zone contact. He gets 40% off of people that try and chase for a pitch with contact, and 32.9% of people chase pitches. 42.3% land at the edge of the strike zone.
Okay, so Ev, another one, a great pitcher, Grant Holmes.
Grant Holmes, yeah, actually fakes the most batters out of any Braves pitcher right now because he's been healthy for an entire season. It's his first year full time starting. He was more of a long reliever. Now he's starting to get adjusted to a starting role, but he's had a whole year to get used to it. And he's definitely gotten a lot better. Allowed batting average 227, allowed on base percentage 321, allowed slugging 384, allowed WOBA 313, allowed WOBAcon 347. His throw rate is a little high at 10.4. None of his stats are really stand out. Nothing's really too high. Nothing's really too low. Um, his expected batting average is 235. Expected slugging is 404. Expected WOBA 324. Um, Expected WOBA con is 392. Grant Holmes. He's had a really good year in the rotation, in my opinion. He's had a lot of strikeouts, actually 119 strikeouts, the 50 walks. So maybe his control could be a little bit better, but overall, been a good pitcher for the Braves.
All right, Ev. So for our next guy, guy that's coming off a big injury, we're seeing improvements in him though, but it's Spencer Strider.
Spencer Strider, yes, a former ace for the Braves, coming off of, like you said, a really bad injury, but definitely been improving each game. I actually got to see him pitch on July 4th. That was really cool. Went 6 innings, gave up 3 earned runs, and overall this season he's got a allowed batting average of 215, allowed on base percentage of 299, walked 24 batters, allowed slugging 386, allowed WOBA of 302, allowed WOBA con of 376. His biggest weakness is his allowed exit velocity, which is 92.1 off the bat. That's bottom 2% in all of the MLB. A lot of this has to do with the fact that he throws hard. He throws a 99 to 100 mile an hour fastball, and he uses it very frequently. Like, he's always been known for using his fastball. His run value this year with his fastball is only in the 40th percentile. And he's used the fastball a little bit less this year. He's down to about 53.8%, whereas earlier in his career, he used it close to 80%. So he's definitely found a way to use more effective pitches to maximize his game, and it's worked out somewhat well for him this season.
All right, Ev. So the next pitcher, a guy didn't have the best outing the other day, but I still like him. But it's Daysbill Hernandez.
It's Lauren Hernandez, one of my personal favorites out of the bullpen, and he has stood out this season for a couple of reasons. Other than the past outing, he's been consistent. He's been a steady. He's had steady improvements. I actually got optioned to AAA the other day. Hopefully, he'll get called back up pretty soon. Um, I think they were completely wrong for sending him down. Biggest issue here, his control. 23 walks on 124 batters faced. That's a huge weakness. He's a walk rate of 18.5. Unfortunately, you really can't last in the MLB with that kind of walk rate. Hopefully, he can develop his control a little bit better in AAA. That's probably why they sent him down, to be honest, just to develop that control. But his allowed batting average is 153, so really good. His allowed WOBA is in the top 1% of all of baseball. That's a 212. That's absolutely amazing. And he's also in the top 1% in expected slugging percentage allowed. So he has some really good standout stats, including having 4.3 in the barrel rate. So he has some really good stats, but also walks a little bit too much. But yeah, I think he's pretty good.
No guy that has had a few very bad sells in the past. Pierce Johnson.
Pierce Johnson, yes, I believe the main sell you're talking about was in mid to early July, that series against the Giants, where he spiked a curveball into the ground and we lost. And then he blew the next game by giving up a 2-run homer. So he's very unreliable in my opinion. That's part of why we're struggling this year because he's blown a lot of games. We've lost by a single run. A lot of batting average 2.3. Allowed on base percentage 295, allowed slugging 350, allowed WOBA 355, allowed WOBA 283. His expected batting average 214, so I guess not bad. Expected slugging 370, expected WOBA 285, and expected WOBA 357. So yeah, Pierce Johnson. I mean, I guess he's not bad. He's come through in a couple of key moments, but he also has blown a lot of games for us. But it's kind of been the theme of our bullpen this year, and he has been headlining a lot of blown games this year.
So, the youngest pitcher, I think youngest player in all of the MLB, Didier Fuentes.
Didier Fuentes, yes. Just had his third outing and it did not go well. It seems like it's kind of an uncommon theme, but he's gotten worse every outing instead of getting better, and that's not a good sign. I mean, he's only 20 years old. Actually, recently turned 20. I think only about a month ago, maybe even less than a month. So there's potential there, obviously, but he's got to go back down to AAA, work on some stuff, and we really shouldn't keep him up here until he's like fully ready because we're just destroying his confidence, and he may never be the same player again if we keep letting him get destroyed every time he comes out here because he's clearly not ready. So it's a lot of batting average, 383. something that stands out. His allowed Wobicon is 574. That's absolutely like terrible. Allowed launch angle of 21 and allowed exit velocity off the bat of 93.5. These are extremely horrible stats. These are bottom tier stats. There isn't enough stats on him to be able to be able to be ranked. But if there was, these would all be bottom 1% stats. It was clear he was not ready yet. We have lost a couple of games because we brought him up here a little bit too soon. But also understand we're really struggling with how many stars we actually have due to injuries to Reynaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, for a time, Spencer Strider. A ton of injuries have happened. I understand why we had to call him up, but I think it was a little too soon.
So got a younger guy, not as young as Didier, but Spencer Schwellenbach.
Okay, Spencer Schwellenbach. Yes, he's definitely worked his way into the rotation and has earned himself a solidified spot, in my opinion. He's a very valued player. Actually, has the most value on the entire team, with his run value being plus 13, best out of all pitchers. At a very young age, too. I believe he's a rookie or a second-year player. He's he's going through an injury right now. I think it was inflammation in his elbow, and he'll be back in early September. He put up decent stats: allowed batting average 217, allowed on base percentage 252, allowed slugging 366, allowed expected batting average 258, allowed expected slugging of 406, hard hit ball percentage 41.5. That's just under Grant Holmes. Launch angle average is 8.3, and exit velocity 88.8 off the bat. So overall, definitely having a pretty solid season. Hopefully, he can pick up where he left off in early September, because we're going to need him, because we currently have one rookie and one bullpen game every rotation.
All right, so our closer not having the best season of his career, but Raisel Iglesias.
Yes, Raisel Iglesias been our closer for a couple of years now, but having a really bad season. But he's been picking it up a little bit. Had a nice last 5 or 10 outings, definitely. Um, his Wobicon, though, is in the bottom 7% of Major League Baseball at 438. Allowed batting average 257, allowed on base percentage 305. Something I noticed that he was struggling with at first that he started to get better at was he was starting out, it's like every count with a guaranteed 1-0 count, just starting out with a very ineffective pitch every time. And it seemed like it was always way outside, middle and outside, always starting out behind in the count. That's never a great thing. But something that he's done well at, he's top 5% in lowest hard hit ball rate at 31.4. Expected batting average 234, expected slugging 441, and its expected WOBA at 310. So our closer, Raisel Iglesias, is definitely seeming to find his footing again. And if we can make the playoffs, he should be able to continue his consistency that he's shown throughout a very successful career, going into hopefully the postseason for the Braves.
So out of two guys left, we haven't seen a ton of them like so far. They've delivered in some key moments a little bit, but Enyel De Los Santos.
Enyel De Los Santos, yes. He's a reliever that, like you said, we haven't really seen a ton of. Only 161 batters faced. His allowed batting average 200, allowed on base percentage is 280. He's walked 14 batters, had 36 strikeouts. So overall, some pretty good stats. Matter of fact, he's actually in the top 4% in all the MLB in allowed exit velocity at 86.1, which is the best on this team right now. And that's very good for a guy who's really trying to just establish a spot as a permanent part of the bullpen. And I think he's really earned that. I mean, he's had a couple of not as good outings, but he's delivered for us in some key moments in the seventh.
Okay, so someone that's having a little bit of a bounce back year, Bryce Elder.
Bryce Elder, yeah. Like you say, he's attempting to have a bounce back year. For a time, I thought he was having it, but he really hasn't been able to achieve that. Overall, I mean, his season hasn't gone that bad on paper through the direct stats sheet. That's any batting averages, on bases, slugging. That's the main thing we talk about. The strikeouts, the walks. Overall, these are just okay stats, good enough to keep you in the majors. But then you look at, honestly, he's getting pretty lucky as we dive deeper into our advanced stats. His WOBA, bottom 6%, 370. His WOBA con, bottom 10% in all the MLB. Hard hit ball ratio, bottom 9%. Expected batting average, bottom 4%. Expected slugging, bottom 6%. Expected WOBA, bottom 6%. And expected WOBA con, bottom 6%. So just about every advanced stat he's just extremely low in. He actually has the worst run value out of any pitcher in our entire pitching staff with negative 18. That's 31 below our first place, Trollenbach. So, as of right now, just looking at the direct stats, Elders, going to stay up, but realistically, probably not. His xERA is 5.57, and that can't keep you in the majors. He's not going to last. He's trying to have a bounce back year coming off a 6.52 ERA season, and for that, he had 3.81. He had some solid seasons, but in my opinion, he just got figured out and was never that good to begin with.
So our last pitcher we have for the Braves is going to be Rafael Montero.
Yeah, Rafael Montero. Overall, he was having a decent season, in my opinion. Allowed batting average of 194, 17 walks, 36 strikeouts, only giving up 2 home runs, no triples, and 7 doubles this season. So overall, it hadn't been that bad. He doesn't really stand out as really good, really bad in any specific category. Just been kind of an average reliever, nothing special. Haven't really seen a ton of him. We've seen a little bit less of him than we have Aniel De Los Santos. We've only seen Montero for 141 plate appearances, but recently, I believe it was July 5th, so a little over a week ago, he blew a game in the late innings. I believe actually the extra innings, we completely blew the game. We had a really good chance against the Orioles. We blew multiple close games throughout that series, and that's honestly a large part of what's put us in this situation because we were starting to find some momentum after a rough first 75, 80 games, and then we just completely lost it, and then we were right back to being nowhere close. We're starting to find our footing again, but one of those key losses during that awful losing streak, the most recent losing streak, was largely because of Montero. Probably the most embarrassing loss of that entire losing streak. But I mean, other than that, the guy hasn't been that bad. He's a solid reliever, and hopefully he can regain his confidence. Like something like that can definitely shoot your confidence out. But hopefully he can regain his confidence and continue to be a solid reliever in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning.